Hello everyone, my name is Brendan Snyder. Thank you so much for joining me and welcome to question and answer session number 6. So having just hit 7,000 subscribers, I'm doing this video as a thank you and answering some of your submitted questions here. I received quite a few different ones. I've narrowed it down to 35. They break down as 26 music related questions, 4 channel related questions, and 5 personal questions. And just to catch people up who might be new to my channel, I am a licensed registered architect in the state of New York. It's what I do by day when I'm not making these videos for all of you. And it's the reason I wear this shirt here, which has the joke on it, someone that solves a problem you didn't even know you had. See also wizard and magician. Again, inside joke amongst architects. But my passion is music, and I started collecting 32 years ago in 1989. I've got over 11,000 CDs and over 200 box sets. I have no plans to stop collecting, so that's just going to keep on going there. And we will go ahead and jump into this here, but give you a little bit of background that was on me there. And one thing I always like to start off with here and say is that I will certainly do my best to pronounce everyone's name correctly, but of course I will apologize up front because I'm quite sure I'm going to mess some of these up. So I am sorry in advance. But we are going to start off with music related questions. 26 of them we're going to run through here. First one up, Lumpy Gravy 52 asks, what do you think of the rock is dead statement? And just generally speaking, I would say I disagree with it. I think rock is very much alive and well. You know, while it's not the popular format that it once was in the 70s and 80s, it does still, go on. It's just moved to the underground. And I do understand the statement as a whole because today's music, which is not the rock format, it's the other types of music and things that are out there. So rock itself doesn't really thrive the way it once did. A lot of people look at that and say that it is dead or a dead format. But you can also look at it a different way and say, there are a lot of bands that still make a really good living at it. In particular, look at Kiss and Gene Simmons. Gene Simmons being the one who has really made this statement a lot, given it a lot of, popular forum at least for it. And, they go out and make a killing still touring. So in my opinion, rock is still very much alive. It just might not be the most popular format of music, but look at the classic rock bands that are out there. They are making huge bank. In particular, the Rolling Stones were the #1 touring act of 2021. So rock band right there, and a rock band out of the 60s, no less. All right, another question from Lumpy Gravy 52 is, what is the farthest you have traveled for a concert or show? And generally speaking, not very far. I live in New York City, so pretty much every band comes to me here, which is kind of nice. All right, next question. Will Seung asks, what concert are you looking forward to in 2022? I happen to have Ringo's Starr tickets in June. It has been pushed back for 2 years at different times, so hopefully this time it will actually happen. I am looking forward to the Tom Kiefer of Cinderella tour, of which he's got LA Guns and Faster Pussycat opening, so I might check that out if that comes my way. Next question from Richard S. Have you ever been forced to see a band you didn't like? Generally speaking, again, no, because I'm very particular with who I go and see and how I spend my time, etc. So I would not go and see a band that I didn't like or have some reason to be there for at least. But I have gone and seen shows where I didn't know a particular band was opening or something of that nature, and I came out of it really enjoying that artist after the fact. And then Jose Vincent Lazo asks the question, why do you only collect CD and not vinyl? And the short answer to that is I do collect vinyl. I collect a number of different formats. I do collect cassettes as well. And I have vinyl for things like this, Night City, a Ray Manzarek album of which has never been issued to cassette or CD, Ray Manzarek being from The Doors, or things like this from Record Store Day that again are only issued on vinyl. So things that are only on vinyl or cassette, I still collect this Black Eyed Susan 2000 release here called Just a Taste was their second album and was only ever issued on cassette. There never was a CD or vinyl, so I have those in my collection. But yes, my main format being CD, but I do still collect other formats as well. And Jose also wants to know, how many CDs do you buy a week? And generally speaking, it varies. Over the year, it's ranged from 4 all the way up to 30. But best way to keep up to date on that is just tuning in every Wednesday to New Music Finds, where I always run through everything that I purchased over the last week. And Beat Up Record Collector would like to know, do you collect music DVDs and Blu-rays? And I do. I occasionally keep them in the display in the background. I just had Pink Floyd in the background for my most recent Music News Roundup episode, so I have those. I've also enjoy ones like these where they come with cool booklets or tour programs, things like that inside here. So when there's something a little extra, sometimes in the DVD versions, I will pick those up. And I've even done reviews of this live DVD performance, which is Deep Purple, and some on Rush. So yeah, there's other stuff like that throughout my channel as well. All right, Alan Cullen asked the question, do you collect CD singles? Generally speaking, I don't. I used to collect them a lot more back in the late 80s, early 90s, when CD singles still had unreleased B-sides or unreleased material B-sides, things like that on it. But occasionally an artist, in this case Mick Jagger, put out a single that does not exist on an album, so non-album single. I will buy those and add them to the collection, so I do CD single collecting in that regard. And another question from him, how do you protect your CDs? Generally speaking, nothing other than just being very careful with them. One like this that is just the cardboard sleeve, I'll squeeze it a little and see how it just kind of started to roll out like that. It keeps it from rubbing. So I do little things like that, but I don't put them in any special sleeves or things of that nature to protect them. I'm just very careful with how I remove them and work with them. All right, Matt Seltzer, or Setzar, I should say, and Joe T asked the question, which of your rare albums is my favorite or worth the most? And I think that's all kind of subjective. So I've got this one here that I often go to, Misfits, 12 Hits from Hell. It's an unreleased album by them. It was due out in 2000 or 2001, and got all pressed up, and then Glenn Danzig got an injunction to stop its release, but they had already pressed 2,000 and sent them out around to different reviewer people, magazine editors, stuff like that. So that's how I got a hold of a copy of that. And then I've got this one here, which is a Duff McKagan, bassist for Guns N' Roses, second solo album, Beautiful Disease. That was a shelved album by Geffen Records. So during a merger, the album was shelved and never released. So this album is still out of print, or not out of print, but never released to this day. So I've got those kind of things, and those are definitely my favorite ones. Whether they're how rare they are and how much they are worth and stuff like that, again, a lot of that is subjective, but those two are two of my favorite rarity items that I have in my collection. All right, and Ches from Thunderstruck Triple Z asks, what are your favorite best of greatest hits albums? And for me, there's not a specific one that I go to, but I do like ones that are comprehensive, that have something from each of the albums that artist put out, usually, one track each from all of their albums. I really hate it when greatest hits skip over multiple albums, things like that. I also like ones that don't focus just on the hits, ones that have rarities and alternate versions, things like that make it worthwhile having in the collection. And Andreas from Greece asks, what is the greatest song ever written? And I don't know, this one's a really hard one. I had to think about it for a long time, and we all know those top 100 songs countdowns that they do every year on radio stations and stuff like that. And there's no way I'm picking things like Stairway to Heaven and Hotel California, which are usually in the 1 and 2 slots of those things. They're just too overplayed in my opinion. Not that they're not great songs. And in a past question and answer session, somebody asked me, what is the last song I would like to hear before I die? Which I thought was a really interesting question. And the only thing that really came to my mind at that time, and this doesn't mean that it is the greatest song ever written, but I said at that time, Tom Petty, I Won't Back Down. And I just absolutely love that song. So at least as a personal song that I think is a great song, I would go with Tom Petty, I Won't Back Down. All right, and Don Savino asks, have you ever done a segment on Blackfoot? And I haven't done a complete segment or episode on Blackfoot. I certainly have talked about them. I report on them in music news and stuff like that. One thing with them is that their current lineup is all non-original members. So this is their latest album, and everyone you see here is a non-original member. Ricky Medlock selected the band. You can see on the inside, here's Ricky Medlock with those 4 guys around the recording console with him. So he has selected a group of guys to be Blackfoot. He co-writes the material with them and produces it, but he is not part of the band. So if you go see Blackfoot, they are not anyone from the original lineup. It is essentially a tribute band just playing the material that Ricky Medlock wants you to hear. So kind of an interesting thing, and I have talked about that in different types of segments and things of that nature. So I just had done a segment about whether bands should continue when there's they change members or there's no original members left. Blackfoot was one of the bands that I talked about in it, so they are usually included in different segments. All right, and Frank Sinatra, and I love how it's spelled because they use a PH for F and Z instead of S. But Frank Sinatra asks, what is my take on the band Icon? They're a great 80s band, and I have several of their albums. I wouldn't say, I'm a huge fan of the band, but I do like them. And I didn't really grow up with them. It was a band I found later. Maybe if I'd grown up with them, I'd have a bigger affinity for them. But I do like the band, and they are part of my collection. And Buffalo Mike asked the question, do you enjoy newer bands like Trivium, Bullet for My Valentine, or Shinedown? And no, as a whole, I don't really enjoy those bands. It's not really my cup of tea. It's not something that I'm into. I do like some newer rock bands, like Night Flight Orchestra is one of them. But of the newer bands that I listen to, a lot of times those bands feature members from previous bands that I grew up with. So there's a new band out there called Tokyo Motor Fist, but that band is actually made up of guys from Danger Danger, Trickster, and Rainbow. So when I get into newer bands, it's often because I know someone that's part of that I like, and that's generally how I get into that. It's nothing against these other bands other than they don't really catch my ear the way that the bands that I grew up with in the 70s and 80s do. JJ asks the question, do you like the band Darkness? And I've never been a fan of their vocals, so as a whole, I don't get into that band either. M. Phillips wants to know, do you like newer sleaze glam metal bands like Crash Diet, Crazy Licks, etc.? And so I certainly am aware of these bands. I do like their sound and so forth. But what it comes down to is part of my collection, I've got over 1,200 albums from glam metal and sleaze metal bands from the 80s and 90s. And so a lot of these bands are still active, making new albums. LA Guns, Faster Pussycat, a lot of the bands are reforming, Spread Eagle, stuff like that. And so with these bands still being around, either releasing archival material, putting out new albums and so forth, there's so much of that I end up focusing mostly on that instead of sort of having that need to go out and find a newer band. A lot of those bands, while good, to me do sound like those bands of the 80s, and when I hear them, it reminds me of that band from the 80s, and instead of wanting to continue to hear that band, newer band, it ends up making me just want to pull out the original artist who created that sound. So that's really why I don't generally follow a lot of those newer bands. Not that they're not great, and I really appreciate what they're doing for the genre. Again, it just comes down to space, time, and who I first started with. Ellis Martin asked the question, Do you own any Iced Earth? And who is your favorite singer? I do own some Iced Earth. In particular, my favorite vocalist is Ripper Owens. And I have to say that I was always aware of who Iced Earth was before Ripper joined the band, but the reason I got into them was because of Ripper, and then after that, I followed along when Matt Barlow came back into the lineup and so forth. But the real reason I was listening to the band wasn't for any other particular reason than Ripper Owens. So that's my real connection to Iced Earth, at least. Next question from Tomek Debski, and again, apologizing if I'm butchering any of these names. What is the heaviest album you own? I've got albums from Slayer, Sepultura, artists like that. I would say that's probably the heaviest I go. I don't get into death metal and stuff like that. What is the best grunge album? I think it is Pearl Jam Versus. And what album do you own the most versions of? So Whitesnake 1987, I have 4 versions of. I've got an original CD and various reissues of it. I've got the deluxe edition box set, and I've got a single disc edition that came from that box set. So like that. Def Leppard Hysteria, I've also got 4 versions of. Over the years, they've reissued and did a double album version of it in a box set, and it's come reissued in CD collection versions and stuff. So it's not intentional that I own 4 versions of these. It's just through buying other things or staying up to date with a version that has come out for some particular reason to get bonus material, I've ended up with 4 versions of it. Dave J. Meister asked the question, how do you handle CD cases that come cracked in the mail? I think it's a simple answer. I just changed them. It's not really a big deal to me. I don't like it. I understand where, Dave, you're coming from on this, because yes, it is highly annoying. It's not Amazon per se that is the problem. It's the mail service. But yes, I would like it if Amazon would ship in better protection so that this doesn't happen. But I worked in music stores, and a lot of times they arrive cracked in the boxes to the stores. So when Amazon opens it, it's entirely possible they're already cracked. It may not even be what Amazon is doing to us. But at least with jewel cases, plastic cases, you can swap them out. What I really hate is digipacks, where when they arrive and they're dented or bent and damaged, you can't swap that out. Then I have to go through the process of returning it to Amazon or a store to get a replacement that isn't dent or damaged. And I just recently did this with the most recent Neil Young album, Barn. It arrived, it was bent on the corner. I got a replacement, it came bent. I ended up returning both of them to Amazon and going down to my local Barnes & Nobles to buy it. But it was just such a huge inconvenience having to order once, reorder for a second time, return both by going and dropping it off so it could be shipped, and then going down to my local Barnes & Nobles and having to pick it up there. I mean, it was just a huge fiasco and headache. So that aspect of this, I really do understand and don't like either. All right, Joe T asked the question, how many listens do you give an album before moving on? There's no real set number to me. If I put an album on and it's not clicking with me, I take it out. I don't force myself to listen to an album. If I'm not digging it, I just take it out, put it away. But it's in my collection, and I will come back to it when I'm in the mood at a different time, and I'll enjoy it far more if I do it that way than if I require myself to sit down. Now, as far as like reviewing albums for you guys, I will generally at least listen to an album 3 times all the way through before I start making any sort of assessment on it, and a lot of times it's 4 and 5 times and that sort of stuff. How many bands, artists have you met? 59. Some of them more than once. My favorite person that I've ever met is Kip Winger of the band Winger. He was just the absolute most nice guy, going out of his way to sign all my stuff and so forth. And the worst was Rat. I met them in 1990, and they were just real sort of stuck up, full of themselves guys at the time. There's a whole bigger story behind all of that, but I will say this, years later I met Stephen Pearcy, and at that time he redeemed himself. He went out of his way, he signed all my stuff, and things were a lot better. So at least that bad memory has been replaced by a better one years later. And another question that Joe T also asks is, what person that has passed away would you like to hear archival material from? And it would be Eddie Van Halen. So I'd love to get an unreleased album from him. But also, you know, I'd love to get an unreleased album from Tom Petty or Ronnie James Dio. You know, there's so many great artists that have passed away. But right now, at this point, I'd really like to hear some unreleased material from Eddie Van Halen, and I hope we get some of that very soon. Okay, that wraps up the music-related ones. I've got 4 here that are channel-related. William Rogers asked the question, what time of day do you film your videos? And so in particular right now, I'm actually filming this at 8 in the morning. I wait till the sun has come up and I've sort of woken up, and oftentimes I'll get up and write them early in the morning, and so I film them before going to work. Then I go to work and you know, I'm an architect for most of the day. I just find that I'm too tired in the evening when I come home, so I'm filming these in the morning. So they're always filmed a day in advance. So sometimes when you guys are hearing the music news roundups on Fridays, I have filmed them Thursday mornings, and if something major has come out Thursday afternoon or evening, that's why it's not included, because it's filmed a day in advance. And he also asked the question, how many more CDs do I think that I can fit in my apartment? Somebody else previously asked this, and I did an actual count based on those boxes that I use that you can see outside the doorway there that hold 90 CDs a piece. And I kind of looked around my apartment and added it up, and it came to about 4,000 more CDs, at which I'm going to have to start getting rid of furniture and replacing it with actual just stacks of CDs. So we'll have to see. So I guess at 4,000 more CDs, once I hit 15,000, I will be moving out of this place finally and going from there. Graham Allen asked the question, when I film inside a music store, when I do those you know, experience videos that I've been doing recently, do I get permission? And no, I don't. I go in and I just start filming, and I do it sort of guerrilla style. I try not to make a big deal out of it, and I film in small amounts and edit it together later. Now also, I'm in New York City, so everyone's walking around with their phones out taking pictures or FaceTiming with people and stuff like that. So I think most people don't even take notice to what I'm doing. On the occasion that sometimes I get asked what I'm doing, they never have a problem with it, and they're always thrilled when they find out I'm filming a video, because they just see it as free promotion. And then he also asks, how is it that I maintain such an upbeat persona in each of these videos? And so, you know, music is a passion, and getting to talk about it is, you know, always going to be something that I'm going to be excited to do. It's one of the things that makes me the most happiest. And so getting to put that to good use here and talk with you guys and present stuff, very easy to stay upbeat for these videos. Okay, and personal questions, there are 5 of these. Another one from Beat Up Record Collector asks, what movies, TV shows do you like to watch? There's a TV show called The Rookie with Nathan Fillion that I like. Big fan of his from Firefly and other stuff that he has done. I also like Marvel movies and TV shows. In particular, I'm watching Hawkeye from Disney Channel right now, or Disney streaming, whatever you call it. And then I also like Star Wars and Star Trek series. So a lot of sci-fi sort of stuff. Those are always really interesting to me. And Steve Bubar wants to know if I'm a guitar player and what equipment I play on. And yes, I do play guitar. I play on a G&L Rampage, and I use a Crate amplifier. Buffalo Mike asks, how do I go to the grocery store in New York City, and do I own a car? And yeah, so the grocery stores here in New York City, they are smaller. They have less selection than those big ones out in other places, like where I grew up in Florida and stuff, that are just enormous and have aisles and aisles for days. But they have everything I need, so I go to one grocery store and pretty much get everything right then and there. No, I do not own a car. Public transportation gets me everywhere I need to go within the city. And Joe T asks another question, what do your friends and family think of your collection? And I would say, generally speaking, they think I'm nuts and I'm crazy, but I have to say they are all very supportive, and they know that this brings me such excitement, and so they go right along with it for me. All right, and the final question, which is the most asked question out of all of these that I got, they want to know what my cat's name is My cat is named Noodle. He is a brown tabby cat, or he's a gray tabby cat, depending upon how you see him. But yeah, his name is Noodle, and definitely fun having him around. And I would love to get him on camera. He is just not one for sitting still very long. And for whatever reason, as soon as I start talking or filming, he's very respectful and he goes to the other room. So that's why he's not here today. Otherwise, I would have loved to have introduced him to you. But he does appear in other videos and things of that nature. So. All right, there you go. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and certainly thanks to everyone for helping me hit 7,000 subscribers. I really do appreciate all of that support that you guys have given me here. I'm looking forward to where we're going with this in the future. A lot of great stuff coming down the line. All right, everyone, take care. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you all real soon. Bye-bye, everyone.